Hi, I'm Jeremy Crosby.
And I'm Nick Boucher. We're the hosts for the program that's all about your city, Talking Fitchburg.
Every day, we pull together the news, events, and information you need to stay on top of what's happening in the city of Fitchburg.
Find Talking Fitchburg on cable TV, Roku, Amazon Fire, Apple TV, and our live stream on the web. Plus, you can view all our headlines and stories on Facebook, YouTube, and our video on demand service. This is your city.
Keep up with Talking Fitchburg and the issues that affect you and your neighbors.
Want to know what's happening in your city? Get Notify Me messages from the City of Fitchburg. Visit fitchburgwi.gov on your computer or mobile device and select the big Notify Me button on the left. Enter your email and/or phone number, whichever is best for you to get notifications. Scroll down the list and select all the topics you're interested in to receive email or text messages about. You'll be notified every time one of your topics is updated. Sign up for Notify Me, one more way to keep up with your Fitchburg government.
Well, welcome everybody to the October meeting of the Commission on Aging Well. We do not have a quorum, so we will just proceed with kind of information gathering. So we'll postpone approval of minutes until next month. There are no public appearances, so we will move right to our agenda item on housing initiatives and program specialty. Yes, so.
Thank you for coming, Lorraine. I'll let you kick it off.
Absolutely. So my name is Lorraine Gage, and I, again, the New Housing Initiatives and Programs Specialist. I have been here 3 months. It's went so fast. But before I kind of get into my position and what I do, I thought I'd tell a little bit about myself, so you just kind of know a little bit about me. So I'm a mom of 3 daughters. My daughters' names are Jasmine, Kennedy, and Leah. I intentionally did J, K, and L. So there are 2 adults and 1 child that's still in high school. So I have a degree in human services. I graduated from UW Parkside. I have a master's degree in that, and then also a degree in communication. And extensive works experience, and I'll kind of get into that in a little bit, but just wanted to let you know, and then that's my dog Kylie as well. So my why, and why I decided to kind of get into the field of housing and real estate kind of came from my parents. These are my parents and my younger brother. This is when I was very young. So both my parents were entrepreneurs. So my dad owned a hardware store in the city of Milwaukee, actually a chain of hardware stores, and my mom was a realtor. And our focus was primarily to work in the city of Milwaukee for first-time home buyers, or people that kind of felt kind of discouraged in the housing situation that they were in. So a lot of times my dad would have individuals that would come to the hardware store, and they would ask for things like pest control, because that was, rats ran rapid in the city. Security bars, because security was an issue. And lead paint was a big thing as well. And I think just kind of hearing that day after day, and I had the opportunity to actually work in the store with them and run the cash register and do things like shake paint and make keys. I think what really resonated with them is that they needed better housing. And so my mom's focus kind of, again, was the real estate portion of helping them to find homes. But together as a team, we owned our own mortgage company called Church Mortgage in the city. And that was our primary focus. So it was kind of like a one-stop shop where, one, we would help them understand credit and understand how that helps you to purchase a home. And then also talk about the home buying process, and then help them to become first-time homeowners. Once they got into their home, again, my dad having that background in hardware would kind of tell them about things, the mechanics of the house, the roof, and maintaining the home and landscape, and help them throughout that process. So it wasn't just like we just sold the house and said goodbye. We actually kind of stayed with them throughout the process and answered questions. And really didn't have to do a whole lot of advertising because I think just that community feel was really what they appreciated, and they would just kind of tell friends, and that's how we, really did business. Unfortunately, because of the market, we had to eventually close our doors, but I have to say that was the most euphoric feeling that I ever had.
How many years was it open?
We had it about 4 years.
Okay.
Yeah, and seeing people being able to buy their homes, people who never thought they could even have that opportunity, was just very euphoric. But the housing market in Milwaukee is kind of similar to throughout the United States. There's a housing shortage. There's an older housing stock. That's a big thing in Milwaukee. The older housing stock that really needs to be updated and changes needed to be made. And, it's expensive. So that's my why. In this position, I kind of have been focusing on a series of areas in the 3 months. Even though it's been 3 months, I've kind of done a lot. I haven't realized. But really the biggest thing is building rapport, connecting with landlords and property managers, and really understanding the needs of what's happening in the community. Also working with community leaders and residents to kind of understand their needs as well, from kind of for different lens, from property managers to residents. Of course, as you know, when you start a new position, training is a lot, and so just kind of attending a lot of webinars and trying to really building my knowledge base, especially on programs that impact home buyers and individuals that are renting as well. So there are I'm learning a lot of programs to assist people in their homes to help them with housing stability. Building those partnerships, I think, is really important. I've already become a member of the Regional Housing Strategy Executive Team, and that team really talks about the whole Dane County as a whole and strategies that we can improve together, all the communities together, to address the housing crisis. In the development area, working with various developers with different skill levels and different interests, and really trying to diversify the housing market. So looking at different types of housing options, such as land trusts, rehabilitating homes is a big thing, as we kind of talked about earlier, more senior housing, and then working with a group of individuals called the Acre Graduates. So this group is out of Marquette in Milwaukee. It's a group that focuses on people of color that are interested in development. So they're learning hands-on experiences on how to become developers, and so they're bringing a lot of skill sets to communities throughout the state, and so really utilizing those graduates as well. Housing programs, working with the Urban League, WIDA, so there's a lot of home buying programs, and bringing that to the city, having some sessions here, so really talking to them so that we can bring more information and more resources. And then updating the website, so on our housing side, I'm just constantly putting more information so that individuals who are looking for things related to housing can find that. And then I'll soon be doing things with FACTv as well. So what do I do in this role? So lots of, it's a small organization, so, or small, not organization, sorry, small team. So there's a lot of things that I'm dealing with, but I would say right now my focus is overseeing the housing plan. So we have a housing plan that needs to be updated regularly every 5 years or so. So that's my focus, is updating that plan and kind of focusing on that plan as I execute all the things that related to housing. represent the city as it relates to housing matters, so wherever I am throughout the community or throughout the state, really talking about what Fitchburg is doing in regards to housing. Exploring all kinds of housing funds related federal, state, regional, and county. Working with developers and bringing them to our city. Looking at things such as like grants. So for instance, currently I'm working with a group right now that possibly we're still in the grant process, but looking at possibly bringing in entrepreneurship into our community. So this group is willing to work in a small part of our community to teach them about entrepreneurship. So that would be on a grant basis. And then looking at ways to kind of advance racial equity and inclusivity.
What were RFPs?
RFPs, so really looking at different organizations. So for instance, in the housing side, when we are presented with grants or opportunities, working with different organizations that may be competing to bring more housing into our community. So for instance, I'm trying to think, as I talked about land trust, there's another organization, Habitat for Humanity, possibly may build more homes into our community. So just really kind of sending that information out and, you know, letting them present what they would want for our community and kind of go from there.
Do we have any Habitat houses in Fitchburg?
We do.
We do?
Not many though.
Not.
No, I was gonna say, I used to work for WIDA.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, yeah.
I used to work for Habitat.
Oh, wow.
So I have a question for you. You mentioned that you're working with the Urban League and you said WIDA. Are you working with United Way as well as with Angeles Jones over there? They do a lot of work in
No,
housing.
but I will definitely add that onto my list. Absolutely.
And are you, in terms of your plan, does that plan connect with the healthy neighborhoods here? Are you working specifically?
Yes.
Yeah, can you talk a little bit more about that? Because there's such a need in that connection.
Absolutely. So as I was talking about the entrepreneurship program, that's actually the focus in that community. So bringing more programming to the healthy neighborhoods is the goal. Really kind of connecting with the residents and finding out the needs that they have, and then kind of build from there. I don't think it's, my ideas may not be what their ideas are. So I think that kind of going from there. The other piece is the rehabilitation of the housing stock is a big focus. So we have a program called the Efficiency Navigators. And that organization is working on like things such as heating and windows and updating those things so that their heating bills can kind of be reduced is one of the pieces. And then they also feel more safe and secure in their homes. So that's a goal, is to really kind of update those housing.
Those efficiency navigators, are they like the neighbor, like is it a grant through Dane County?
It's a grant,
Okay,
yes.
so we have we don't have any here. We have the neighborhood navigators, but do we have the efficiency navigators?
So
too?
we're partnering with Elevate Dane,
Okay,
and
nice.
they're making those, updates,
Okay.
so.
Is it okay if we ask questions, or should you do your thing first?
Whatever you prefer, this is informal,
I'd
yeah.
like to ask a question in the plan when you are working on development or trying to get housing here and there and everywhere. How closely are you working with the transportation department? Because that's one of our big problems right now, is they're building these homes and the transportation, they can't get anywhere. It'd be nice to make it mandatory that all new housing things have a bus that would take them here to wonderful Fitchburg Senior Center, or other places too.
Yeah.
But we're fighting, and this commission is really working on trying to get transportation to those places. So are you working with the transportation department?
I haven't per se, but I think one of the things, and I do like that idea, I think I'm gonna add that to the list, but I think we're mindful when we're building development. where we're placing them for that same reason, right? You don't want to place them in an isolated environment where there isn't access to transportation. So especially when we're looking at like affordable properties, making sure that transportation is nearby or walkable. Yes, but working with transportation I think is really important. And I've heard that from other actually property managers that, especially for the seniors, my understanding that not everyone has access to come here, so that's important.
And something that I brought up to the city many times over the years is these new developers that come in, oftentimes there's park dedication fees, and if they're not on a bus line or something, there should be a transportation fee, because oftentimes the developers that are selling senior housing are talking about, oh, the senior center has a bus, but it's very limited, and we can talk about that later, that, that maybe ordinances can be changed or statutes or whatever to say, then, all right, you need to ante up X number of dollars when you develop this area to go towards transporting older adults to where they need to go, or something like that.
Sure.
I think it's worth a look.
Absolutely. Thank you for bringing that to my attention. Yes.
Well, we got all kind of ideas.
And you mentioned affordable housing. I mean, that is huge.
Right.
I mean, for seniors specifically, with the rising rent costs and what have you. So is that something that you are looking into, because it's out of control. It's, seniors can't afford to pay the rent, and that's happening. We've got a lot of senior housing here, but the rent is going up, every few months it appears to be, and to the point where they can't stay in their homes, and so then we'll end up with a homeless issue here in Fitchburg if something's not done with that.
Yeah, another thing to consider too is, and I know Madison is tiny homes. Tiny homes. Is that part of the plan?
Yes, so not tiny homes, hasn't been a discussion, but building homes on smaller lots, smaller homes per se, just for the affordability piece has been, but tiny homes I haven't had a discussion.
Madison has a lot of tiny homes.
You mentioned on smaller lots, do you have to rezone areas to be able to make a lot smaller?
Correct.
So you're working with the zoning department?
Correct.
So
it's kind of twofold, yeah.
I would imagine you'd have to. I mean, with the planning area, zoning, all that,
Any other questions yet?
No, I'm super excited to hear. I feel like we can just call her in every time, like, all right, we got another idea for you.
Bring them, please.
When you talked about putting housing in places where people could walk or people could get on buses, a lot of times seniors aren't able to walk that far, especially, the weather's great now, but when it gets to be, icy outside, and so the transportation has to be something that seniors can
Door to door.
Can get to places door to door, and not just walk to the bus 3 blocks or 4 blocks or something and stand there and wait for a bus, or because falls are an issue with seniors.
Because many of them can't do
right,
that.
and or they can't get they can't get up on that bus to get up there.
That's the paratransit
Right.
along, but lots of things to consider.
Yeah, as long as you're taking notes, well, put down there too that for housing and to provide transportation for seniors, the 65 bus, which is right now a commuter bus, runs east-west. And if you make that, instead of a commuter bus, a regular bus, then we would have a mile and a half.
Three quarters of a mile.
3/4 of a mile and a half total. 3/4 of a mile each side of the road, and I think that's East Sherrill.
So that's in the referendum.
Yeah. But the more people that can scream about that, the better, because then we can have paratransit?
Correct.
Door-to-door service provided by Metro. But right now, there's no door-to-door service there. You just, during commuter hours, you can walk a
Well, you have to
mile
come
get
early and go home
pick up-
late.
Pick up the bus.
Yeah.
Okay, what other things do we want to hit her with?
Yeah, I know, right? All right, keep going.
How about tents? Can people put up tents?
Tents.
Like homeless encampment?
Yeah, Madison's, that's
I know.
big, yeah.
I don't know about Fitchburg.
Yeah, I don't know.
Is that outlawed?
I'm not sure if that's allowed here, yeah.
I would probably say no.
Say that too.
Yeah, yeah. I'll probably say no.
I was
Because
just
I think
wondering.
from a city standpoint, managing that, and I think that would be a challenge, but building homes, I think is just the goal, but
Yeah.
probably not the tents. It's a good question
But if you have homeless people, you know,
And
then they gotta do something.
And if we don't do something about the cost of renting, we're gonna end up with.
Are you considering any
homeless.
kind of thing like a homeless shelter?
I love it.
though. Great question.
Yeah.
I love this.
I mean, I called the police one day on a lady it was like 20 below with a 40 below wind chill, and there was a lady sitting on a top of a snowbank out near the grocery store over here.
Yeah,
They
there's
didn't seem very pleased with me calling them, but they said, wow.
there's
Well,
also,
Let's
yeah,
talk
I
to
mean-
her, and they said, well, I guess we'll go over and check on her, you know.
yeah. We've had clients, we've had homeless clients that we've helped find housing, but we've also had clients that lived in their cars. And I remember reading about a partnership with area churches where people that are living in their cars, they can safely park in the church parking lots at night just to feel safe, and then be connected hopefully through something like that. But to offer a safe place to park is a really nice option if somebody else just doesn't have any other options at that moment.
I mean, the fact is, I mean, we continue to talk about how Fitchburg is growing and growing and growing.
We gotta be
And so we
prepared
have
for
to do
these
other
problems,
things to
right?
address all that growth.
I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A question for you, when you talked about first-time home buyer programs, I know there's a lot of them out there. Are you looking at different options within that type of program where, you know, leasing to own, different options, different opportunities in your trainings and stuff? Okay.
Yes, so.
Because there's just so many different ways of being able to have somebody buy a home, yeah. Okay.
Absolutely, so that's an option that actually one we're looking at is rent-to-own properties as well. Just to have individuals to be able to get into a home and then eventually be able to
Yes.
purchase that home
Yes.
is important.
Okay.
But yes, definitely different types of options I think is important to have.
There's so many out there that you can do. It just has to be really creative.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Nice.
As going back to the homeless piece of it, so I actually used to work for an organization called Housing Initiatives when I first moved here. And so that organization is actually for homeless. So if you are have been homeless for 18 months plus, basically there isn't like any barriers, credit checks or anything of that nature. If you're, you know, on that list and are able to get into the property, they give you a home and kind of base it on income. So there are some programs out there, but in Madison area,
Yeah,
that,
yeah.
and the list is very long. So I'm not trying to make it seem like, oh, everyone can get in a home, but there's, you know, programs like that. But again, it's just the need is bigger than.
And that's why I was suggesting United Way. It's amazing some of the things that's going on in housing here.
Excellent.
And you know, we're sitting here wondering with all these questions, but if I were a homeless person, how would I know how to contact you to find out
Absolutely.
what's available?
Oh, there'll be more. This is very exciting. I'm very excited to have you here.
And what you've brought up in the past at the Friends meetings that the social workers have worked with people that are losing their apartments because
The rent
the
goes up.
rent has gone up.
And there's a
So-
lot of just not, you know, you can not
That
renew
is-
for no reason. And then to find alternate housing,
Right.
you know, 30-day notice, non-renew, I need affordable housing.
So there's probably a lot more people out there that aren't working with your social workers that this is
Oh, for
happening
sure.
to.
Well,
you know.
yeah, absolutely. I mean,
She's good, we're gonna meet with Amy after.
Yeah. I mean, because if you think about some of these older adults are on Social Security, and some of them get $500, $600 a month. And but affordable housing rental is $1,200, and then a few months they come back, and now it's 15, and then it goes to 17, and then they're like, what are we supposed to do? And then we end up with more homeless. I'm really concerned about, the homeless in Fitchburg now, particularly with the growth that we're having out here.
I had the opportunity of visiting the Highlines.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, beautiful. But I like that they are income-based, so kind of, same thing that you were.
It's even, but it's, affordable housing is still an oxymoron in Dane County because of what Janice is saying. We get so many calls that say, I moved in here at this rate, and then they can, they up it because it's the Dane County market, but people's Social Security don't go up, their income doesn't go up. And so there doesn't seem to be any barrier to prevent that rate increase. And we've talked to managers about that, and it's, we're just following along with Dane County market rate, and we have to pay our bills, but that's not the right answer because it's not helpful to the older adult who can't afford it. And then they have to look, and then all of a sudden they're back to substandard housing, unsafe housing, because that's all that's available, and it's a real vicious, or none, and it's a vicious cycle. And we've dealt with, were you familiar with the hotels? Remember, it's homeless to hotels, and then hotels to housing. We have many clients at the center that we continue to work with, even though that funding is gone, I think. It was just kind of that COVID, piece, but we work with a lot of folks that are on that program. I think it's Lutheran Social Services has a contract now or something, but so interesting program and a great program. But then the long-term solution to that program is get them in housing, train them to get a job. And I was like, well, they're homeless for one reason. They're older adults. They don't have transportation. The whole thing, I won't go off on a tangent, but the concept looked great on paper. But the reality of that program put people in a lot of difficult situations. Anyway.
Some of the increase in rents is kind of out of the control of even the property manager, owner. Those are defined by Dane County, and even higher on a federal level, that those increases happen and you can't.
Not allow you. I know, because we've talked to Mike and Joyce. And
and I know it's happening everywhere. Dane County, period, it's happening everywhere. But
so I think even on a higher level, I can do what I can on the
federal government to change the laws.
But definitely talking to our local, officials, I think is also important, and really stressing that need is important. So,
which indeed then goes back to do we need shelters? Do we need something?
Right.
Yeah. That's good to hear. Do you find? What would you say? I know you don't have a number, but like an idea of seniors that are facing housing insecurity.
More than ever this year, we've had not so much working with folks that are homeless, but the non-renewals is a big deal when people get non-renewed because there's just nowhere to go. When we talk to Amy, when we go down, after the meeting, or one of our social workers, she might have more specific stats, but that seems to be the worst trend right now is the non-renewals, because they can just say, we're non-renewing you, and it's really hard to find, particularly if they're in affordable housing, to find other, we had a gentleman come in and say, my landlord told me to get out in 2 weeks, and I'm paying $500, living in somebody's home. And I was like, well, there is no such thing as $500, rental anywhere. Let's try to negotiate with your landlord and whatever, but non-renewals are on the rise.
Okay. And we have several come to the center, but there's several folks that don't come to the center.
Right.
And so we have a certain segment here in Fitchburg where they don't. So you look over the Allied Drive, Verona area, that community. So I was glad to hear you saying you're speaking with people within the community, because I think we have communities within the communities in Fitchburg. And so, yeah, that's gonna be important.
I think too, I heard you say that for affordable housing, you were looking at trying to find appropriate places for that. And I just, the world swings in different circles, and we're back to, I remember when I was in high school and when the projects went up in Chicago, and what a problem that was. But everybody, it was all concentrated then. And so I think, placement, sprinkling and integrating in the community rather than having a set area.
Yes.
I agree with you. Yeah.
That's been years and years struggle with that, trying to get to that, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
excuse me, I'm on a roll.
Yeah.
Out there, I forget what we call the place now, Terra Vista?
Terra Vista.
Yeah.
That place. The original concept was to have affordable housing in that, wasn't it, when they first started that up?
I always thought it was a continuum of care. I never remember the affordable piece, but I could be wrong. It's been in the works for many years.
Because it clearly is not.
Correct. Clearly it's not,
Clearly
but
it's not.
It would be appropriate to have a unit like that there, where there's all the activity that's available out there.
Right.
And that would be integrated within that community rather than, but I guess I heard that before they ever started building.
Right, I mean, they would, and it's change management.
You haven't heard anything about that, you're probably more knowledgeable about that than I am.
Because it's an interesting place, because I went there, went over a month or so for the first time. It's a whole little city, but it's own. I'm like, what? Yeah, I mean, it's like,
Yeah,
wow.
we went out to Lake Farm for a walk, and it's growing all the way out to the park. I mean, they're clearing off all the land there to rebuild more stuff.
Cost of that real estate, though, I bet is like really sky high out
Cost
there.
of land.
And that's probably not in your budget, maybe.
Right, yeah, it's hard to.
But maybe you could alter the rules that a developer, that a developer who's developing a big area like that must have some affordable housing as part of that community.
Yeah, something. Otherwise, this will continue the way it's going. It'll keep happening.
I'm not giving a pass for the developers, but on the developer end, I think a lot of issues, one, like we just talked about, land cost is very high, construction cost is on the rise. So getting all those materials is very expensive, is what we're hearing from developers. So I think on the back end, getting some more support for them to have more incentives to build affordable housing is also important, because I mean, they're in the business to make profits, and if they don't have any profit.
Well, and that's been kind of on the news and stuff like that. That's what saying builders don't want to deal with affordable housing because their profits aren't there. So, it's like, that's something to really, to be addressed, because as a builder, I'm looking to make money. So why would I waste my time, energy, in doing affordable housing versus I can build these wonderful things and, make thousands of dollars on a monthly basis,
Maybe that's what's wrong with our society.
Yeah.
Is we're too concerned about making money and not enough about helping our fellow man.
Well, seriously, because
it really is a problem.
Yeah, it is. Because unfortunately, Fitchburg is great, but it's a city of the have and have-nots. It's becoming that. And that's something we have to pay attention to.
Middle class is slowly fading away. All right, keep going.
No, we love that.
I think whatever next slide is going to be more.
We've already gone through 12 slides.
We've already done, I think, pretty much.
You need a team of you.
I know, right, especially after this meeting.
I don't know what Mike was thinking,
All right.
one person.
So kind of, again, the focus, and pretty much we've kind of talked about it. Another piece is really looking at sustainability. So kind of as I was saying about the efficiency navigators, kind of looking at like the heating and windows and ways that we can kind of save money, I think is important. And even the materials that we use to build the properties, kind of thinking about more of sustainability, so that it impacts the, so looking at electric versus gas, things of that nature, is a focus. And then, building more and more, as we all have kind of talked about, is important in every segment of the population. So regardless of income, trying to find ways to bring more housing, and then those partnerships with those different organizations like the United Way, I think is important.
I think too, the co-housing, a lot of families, particularly people of color in different cultures, they take care of their aging parents. They live with their aging parents. We see it here all the time, and looking at builders, building that co-housing. So there's always a mother-in-law suite, because you see that more and more. My parents moved here and they live with me now. I mean, a lot of folks that are coming over on the bus, I live with my son or daughter, and they work all day, so that's why they're coming over. But that's definitely a trend.
A question on that. You're talking about a mother-in-law suite, but sometimes there's a separate building of mother-in-law's house on the same property.
Like
Is that legal?
That's another trend.
That's a good question. I don't know.
That's a great thought too. Just a separate dwelling,
But
right on site.
But even perhaps larger apartments, because I'm thinking of
Right.
Asians, for example.
Yep.
I mean, and even
Latino older
Latino.
adults, yeah.
There's several people that live within an apartment. So
And the Indian population,
Yeah.
many of, and this is on the rise, we're seeing folks come in and they're moving here and they live with their families.
and I mean, that's their culture,
Correct.
and
Right.
that's their culture.
Right. We take care of our older adults. They live
That's
in our homes.
a good point about the size of the apartments to
Yeah.
handle that, because
Right.
most of them are 2 or 3 bedroom, that's it.
Right.
And if you have a whole extended family living in the same apartment, what are you gonna do then?
And that's what's happening. It has been happening for a long time. So yeah, something to think about.
I agree. I think we've gone through everything, and so.
You're gonna have a whole new slideshow after this.
I know. You guys really kind of gave me that middle piece, and that's ideas, really great ideas. Because again, I'm creating a housing plan, and that housing plan is based off of the residents that live here. So hearing that portion of it from a senior standpoint, I think is really important.
I think that it would be nice, could be a lunch and learn, but to have Lorraine come and talk and get input from older adults themselves.
Certainly do that.
Just to say, from the affordable housing to, I want to sell my home and stay in Fitchburg, but I can't afford to, or, just all of it. Every piece of that. What do people need if they want to stay in Fitchburg? Whatever income that looks like, because I've heard that too. I want to stay in Fitchburg, but there's no senior housing, or there's something affordable, or, so yeah, that would be nice, maybe sometime.
Okay, well,
So when you were speaking to going out into the communities, what's your plan of action? How are you doing that?
I think one step at a time, really. Having forums, kind of like the lunch and learn, but really coming to the properties, working with the property manager, and kind of having forums that people can speak freely about what they're experiencing. Also, I think from like parent standpoint, working with the schools. So, right now I'm working with Verona School District. They have a parent forum, so coming to those parent forums and listening to the concerns related to housing. I'm also part of a group, JFF, Joining Forces for Families, has a forum, and they kind of talk about the housing piece, how it's impacting the families and the children. So kind of hearing that, I think it's important in understanding what the problems are, because sometimes we don't see it, what's happening on a day-to-day basis. So it's kind of a forum where they can speak freely and no retaliation from any person. So I think having those kind of meetings where people can be authentic.
And you might want to consider going, I get the Verona schools and the parent groups, what have you, but I'm thinking more into the community, to the community centers, like, for example, over on Allied Drive, in District 2, where you've got a lot of lower income individuals that live there that are all renters and not necessarily any home owners, so to speak.
Sure.
Work with Aldrin Maldonado, who's over in District 2, and just go into the community, because a lot of those individuals are not going to go to Verona School, to those forums, but would come to the community center, at the Boys and Girls Club or what have you.
And there's the Allied Drive Wellness Center too, right next door.
That's what I'm saying. I just think that's going to be, extremely helpful. Some people are more comfortable, in different settings, so.
So we also have a newly hired person that focuses kind of on that community base. I can't think of her
It's the
title.
community outreach
about
specialist,
Jessica.
But from a different angle.
Okay.
She'll be establishing rapport and
Sure.
but this in terms of specifically when you go in and talk about housing, that's a different kind of discussion that would occur from different people. Receive that.
Okay.
But I think it's great that you and Jessica would work together, because there is that connection.
Yes. Yes.
There's definitely that connection.
same neighborhoods.
Other.
Oh, there will be. Yeah, well, thank you for your time. Paul, you good up there?
Yes, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Very informative.
Yeah, really exciting to have you on board. I remember when they put that position in, I was like, what is that person gonna do? Like, because you don't really, it's a different, again, we've talked about this. Cities are moving in different directions and doing more social service stuff.
Sure.
And so, for a city to start to invest in people that deal with housing is different than it used to be, and I think that's cool.
I don't think so. I guess maybe with my background with WIDA, that
But right,
happens
with
a lot.
WIDA, well, yeah.
I mean, in general, to the
Right.
communities that we work with, that's.
But
this
they
is
always
not
had a
unusual.
designated housing person?
Yeah, a lot of them have.
Okay,
yeah,
so we're
yeah.
behind it, maybe.
Perhaps a little
Okay.
bit, but we're catching up.
Yeah,
That's
no,
the good part.
it's super
Yeah,
exciting, so.
that's the good part.
Yeah, and then, I can grab you after, because I think it'll be great for you to meet. Amy's here today, because we've got some housing stuff, and that's where you can learn about a lot of issues too, is through our social workers, at least that are specific to older adults.
Yeah,
Will reflect the ones we took.
Absolutely, I am
Yeah.
here.
Yeah.
Thank you. Awesome. All
All right,
right,
well, thank you again.
thank you.
Thank you.
Very, very
Yeah,
good.
that was real helpful.
Thank you.
That's good.
Yeah.
It's just the beginning.
It is, right? Yeah. It sounds like you're going to solve everything. I can't wait. I can't wait. I have a lot of faith in you, Lori.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Do you have a report for us?
Right,
You can just share.
I'll
Yeah,
just
that'd be
tell,
great.
I won't go into the number thing, I'll just say that we had a real successful national senior center party with
Oh, yeah.
Red Hot Horror Dogs, and how many people do you think were there? I can't remember.
Boy, I bet a couple hundred.
Yeah, a
come
couple
and
hundred, I
go.
think they
Yeah.
sold a couple hundred
Oh,
samples or
yeah, right,
something, yeah.
yeah.
And then the only other thing I'd have is that they're having a travel show on November 6th in the Fitchburg room, which is in the upper level by the gym, and that's the day after the election. And it's all gonna highlight the 2025 tours, and one of our members actually printed this so that we saved a lot of money doing that, so. We are still working with Mayflower Tours out of Lisle, Illinois, but we've been approached by a local travel company here, Collect Travel, and some of you may be familiar with them, and she is going to present at the travel show 4 other tours that we have that we're sponsoring, one to the Mediterranean coast, which is Spain, France, and Italy, one to Mackinac Island in June, one to Alaska in July, and one to Turkey in October, and then Mayflower will do the autumn in French Canada in September. So, and we make that's where we make most of
That's
our
what I
money.
was gonna say, so if you're gonna travel,
And they
go
don't,
with the friends.
they do not add the cost onto the traveler. We kind of act as the travel agent for these
Yeah,
things, and they give us a donation
yeah, per traveler.
per traveler, right?
Yeah, it's a great
One of the
fundraiser.
interesting things that, I don't know if it's new or not, but downstairs next to all the brochures, the Friends now have for travel a suggestion box.
Oh,
where
nice.
Right.
If you want to go somewhere and it's not on the agenda or on the bookings, you can ask the Friends to consider that. Like my wife and I would like to have a trip to I've never been to Yosemite, I've never been to Redwood Forest or Meteor Lake, so that would be I'm putting in my plug now.
There you go.
There's a suggestion box, which
Right.
we have stuffed.
And if you want to pursue that on your own, you just need to call the travel agents that's associated with the Friends group, which are on the flyers in that area, and tell them that you were with the Friends group and you want them to get credit, and that we planned a trip ourselves, my husband and I, and they get credit for it, so.
Yeah, so it doesn't have to be one of our trips, but if you mention you're from the center, we
The only thing is they probably wouldn't pick you up from here.
Yeah.
Now Colette might, they're talking about picking anybody up from the senior center and taking them and not having to have a minimum number, so we'll see how that works. This is something new for us, so.
Yeah, awesome. So I can run down what I had here, just real quickly. I'm trying to get somebody to come to the next meeting to talk about their experience with shared ride taxi, either a senior center director or an older adult, not the shared ride taxi folks. So I'm working on that. And as far as the budget, we've done some advocating around the LTE nutrition assistant position. So presentations were made to council. Their budget amendments are due by October 12th. And so we'll hear some stuff coming out. And then there'll be one more public hearing and a final vote of the budget on November 12th. So I'll keep you posted on that. We're waiting to hear back about our county budget. At this point in time, we're looking at losing about $1,300. But if they do approve a COLA, a cost of living increase for all, they're called purchase of service providers, POS agencies, then we'll get an increase for case management nutrition. I also hope to run the ambassador training, that we finally have a nice PowerPoint just to give you a preview. We have one person that's come forward to be trained as an ambassador that will go out and continue the outreach on our behalf. Our people counter hopefully will be up and running next week. We're gonna be trained on the software, so that's pretty exciting. I met with a UW PhD pharmacy student who does research, who speaks Spanish, and she's so for one semester, she has to get some hours within the community, and so we're gonna work with her on a few initiatives within the Hispanic community and otherwise, and she's gonna work with the social workers, reaching out to some of our Hispanic clients that don't speak English and talk to them. She really just wants to know their experience in terms of how it relates to the healthcare system for people of color, so it doesn't take a lot of work on our behalf. We're trying to do a big push for early voting, October 22nd to November 1st, and letting people know or reminding people they can come to City Hall and just vote easily here, stay, have lunch, put them on the nutrition bus if they don't have transportation. They can opt to have lunch, they don't have to have lunch, but they would have to stay over the lunch hour. But really pushing that because the day of election is gonna be busy. We don't want people to stand in line if they don't have to. And if they don't have transportation, they can come here between October 22nd and November 1st and vote right over in the Fitchburg room. Easy schmeezy, so big push to do that.
The other thing I just wanted to mention about that is that I work at the polls, and one thing people don't take advantage of enough is people, you can just pull right up here to the front. There's a door, there's a bell that they have set up.
Oh,
You
you can
push
do it
the
in your
button
car?
and somebody will come out and do it in your car.
Oh, they're doing
Same
that.
with, same with some of these young mothers that come with million kids in the car, and they get them all in the strollers and
So
they're
it's just like
dragging
accommodating?
them
Yeah.
along in there.
Okay.
As long, if it's hard for you
Right.
to
Get out of the
get
car.
into the thing,
Good to
a
know.
young mother can do that too. They can come up there, push that
And they
button.
offer that at I remember they did that during COVID, but I didn't
Right.
realize they
Yeah, and they
continued.
do it during the polling, and a lot of times, like the lady that's in charge says, why didn't that lady push the button? She didn't have to bring all those kids and drag
You
them all
didn't
in here,
know,
put them all in
right, yeah.
strollers and
Okay.
everything.
Where is this button?
It's right in the turnaround where
They'll install it, it's not
Yeah,
there
they
now.
install it, it's not
Yeah.
here. It's only there on the day of the polling.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah, on the day of polling, yeah.
It's not a permanent thing like the library there?
No.
No.
It's on the
Interesting.
day of polling, they have, it's on a little stand and they,
Okay,
Good to know.
yeah.
that is good to know.
So
It's
especially
good to
for-
have that on the FACTv too, so
Yeah.
people know about it.
Yes,
Yes.
especially for people that,
Yeah.
it's hard for them to get in and out of the car and
Yep.
walk, because usually the parking is crazy
Oh,
for.
yeah, it's
And
gonna
it'll
be
be crazy,
crazy.
and the pre-vote will be,
Yep.
it'll be busy too with parking, so. I
Yeah,
don't think they have a button for the pre-vote, though you have to come in and do that,
Right.
yeah.
yeah, so yeah, we've got 20 signed up for Zumba that will be taught in Spanish. We're working with Newbridge, Madison, who's gonna do the transportation for us. It's open to anybody, but it is in Spanish, so you can follow the moves and you don't have to speak Spanish, so we still have some room for that. The social workers are already taking appointments for Med D enrollment. If you want to change your Med D plan for your prescription drug plan, that runs from October 15th to December 7th. So they'll help you go through your drugs and help you find the best affordable plan for you. We'll talk to Lorraine. We have a housing navigator program working with Joining Forces for Families. So we have one volunteer that stepped forward to be trained on that. And that will be held at the Boys and Girls Club on Wednesdays, helping people go through housing if they need housing, and then apply for housing. And thanks to the friends have donated a gift card that we can help people pay for an application fee if they don't have the money for that. So we'll talk a little bit more about that. And then we have our first, we have a new volunteer who speaks Spanish, who is Hispanic, and she's gonna be an RSVP driver, which is really great because it's been really hard to give rides to folks that speak Spanish with that language barrier to medical appointments. So it's kind of nice that we have this option now and we can promote that a little bit more in the community. So yeah, lots of stuff going on in November, so check out your newsletter. Yeah, go ahead.
We've had advanced planning.
Oh yeah, I had that on here too.
With UW, hospital comes in and they did a session on advanced planning, and then part two, we had people sign up and they came in and they sat down with each individual person if they chose to sit down with them, and they went through their documentation and witnessed it and then had it scanned over into their hospital folders and what have you. So it saved individuals a lot of money, where that could cost you anywhere up to $500 to have an attorney do that. But they were able to do that. So we had all approximately in 2 days, about 20 people.
20 people.
Yeah, so it was really good and really helpful. And then we also had, I have at Lunch and Learn, MG&E came in to talk about energy assistance. And then next Wednesday, they're coming in with a processor to help individuals go through the application process if they're interested in applying for energy assistance. As we all know, older adults can use that help, and so that will be occurring next week.
Next Wednesday.
Yeah, so,
Awesome.
yeah, next week, Wednesday. They'll come in and sit down, instead of them having to go over to the energy assistant place off of Park Street or go down to MG&E. I'm bringing them here, and they're gonna sit down with individuals and, help them through that process. So that was only two things that, related to Lunch and Learn.
I have one thing for you.
Jill?
Oh, go ahead, Paul. Oh, sorry, Jim.
Go ahead, Paul.
Yeah, Jill, regarding the LTE position, you've made it pretty clear that that's probably an uphill battle. Talk a little bit about if it's not approved, what changes, what goes away? How does Mandy's job change Does it just change back to what it was?
Yep.
What is that? Paint a
Yeah.
picture what that looks like.
Yeah, I mean, it goes back to what it was. I mean, having Chris here has afforded her to not be in the kitchen, most days. And it goes hand in hand, like Tuesday, we're short a volunteer, and so she's in the kitchen. And by having Chris be here, it takes her out of the kitchen to do more of the administrative stuff. And then, work on more volunteer recruitment, like now we have a navigator, and, we need more drivers, and we need meal drivers particularly too, because the changing nature of volunteers is the commitment is just not quite, we don't have as many Jims and Janices, and, there's a lot of sporadic, I just want a day or two a month, and so the volunteer pool really has to grow to continue to meet the needs. But if we go back, we knew that this was a risk. The city made it clear that they would not guarantee to put this position in. The Friends have been so generous, and maybe we look back towards them. But yeah, it goes back to normal. And then you just even realize more how much that position is needed. It's already in the request for 2026 because, we were instructed that we were not supposed to put any new staffing in the 2025 budget if it was outside the referendum. So this is a little bit of a push because we were already told we couldn't do that. But the battle is not over yet.
One suggestion I would have is there, whoever's in charge, I don't know how it works, but if they could come and see what she does, because I watch her in action.
Yeah.
And she does, you're getting a bang for your buck, I'll tell you. She does a lot of work there, and some of the volunteers that are there are like the most dedicated volunteers that work in that kitchen. And if they're seniors, and if something happens to one or two of them, I don't know who's going to step up to do the work that those ladies do.
Right, exactly.
Those men too. It's really a
it's
tenuous situation.
I would say those ladies because.
And the Tuesday men group.
I said and men, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And I think, in some of my advocacy, this is an essential service. Food and nutrition and food insecurity is an essential service. And we have been so gifted with these amazing volunteers that have done so much of the program. But as it has grown, I just feel like it's irresponsible to put a lot of some of these duties on volunteers moving forward, and I think
there's a lot of rules, like I watched.
Well, there's rules, there's changes,
so many
there's
scoops,
diets.
it has to be a certain scoop of things.
And there's so many deadlines within the day.
And the administrative piece of dealing with any county funding, reporting, tracking, and then this is tied to federal funding. So they just switched a whole new program that, it was like 2, 4, 6 hours of training that Mandy had to go through just to learn this new database, but that's all related to the Older Americans Act funding. So it's so much more as government gets. The more funding you get, the more time you have to spend reporting on that funding, justifying that funding, data input. So it's been so nice to have Chris in there, because if somebody can't drive or somebody doesn't show up, rather than Mandy running out and taking a route, oftentimes Chris can, because it's often been, I kind of stopped driving routes because I can't do this, but the social workers might, so somebody's always pulled from their job to do that job. So it's been great. Go ahead, Paul.
Yeah, has any thought been given to utilizing volunteers to recruit more volunteers?
That's the ambassador, yes. That's kind of what that ambassador program is meant to be, is to be everywhere all the time. And it doesn't even mean, that you have to be at a community outreach event. It's wearing your shirt out in public and talking about the programs and services. And so that's a piece of what we want that ambassador program to be. You're not just talking about programs and services, you're talking about volunteer opportunities, how to be more engaged. And, we might do that, but it's nice to have a peer-to-peer doing that out in the community. So, yeah, and we can, focus more heavily on that.
And to Paul's point, we talked about this quite a while ago, but I think the ambassador program is a good program, and I think we all technically we are all ambassadors and we should
Right.
be out there talking about the center at all times.
Right.
But I think it's a specific focus on being out there recruiting volunteers. You know, whether or not there's certain, ambassadors that's doing that, I think that we need a really strong focus on the recruitment of volunteers.
Paul, did you have something else you wanted to say there?
No, my point is, with appropriate talking points, I think anybody, myself or anybody around the table can talk to groups about the value of volunteering. Anyway, I'd be willing to
We used to,
if that were needed.
we have to circle back to that because we used to do better outreach. And I think as we get busier, that piece, like even myself, Lions Club, churches. I used to go to neighborhood associations at night, long time ago. And we've kind of gotten away from connecting with the community that way because we're so focused on connecting with older adults and serving older adults. Then you forget that piece of reaching out to the community to engage people as volunteers. And so that's a big piece of that push. And the ambassador training, I think that I feel it because we're kind of going to move towards a peer-to-peer outreach. I want a consistent message. I want to make sure that if somebody's going to go out there and talk about, well, we need volunteers to do friendly calling for the case management program. Well, what does that case management program look like? So that's part of that training, just to make sure that everybody is kind of like, oh, okay, I didn't understand that piece of it, or oh, that's how the transportation works. So, if I were going to be a driver for volunteering, that's how that works. And so incorporating that, but I like that specialty, like, okay, your job is just to go out and recruit volunteers. You go to neighborhood associations and they're all younger families, that's your volunteers. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So you have that form.
Yep.
It's a specific focus for
Right.
doing that. And because today, in terms of older adults volunteering, older adults are working even more.
Oh, yeah.
So
And,
those
right.
hours aren't out there like they have been.
Well, and even the younger generation, they're working full-time, both of them, and oftentimes they're caring for kids and they're caring for their parents. And so it's just, and Mandy's done a little bit of research, I want to see more, because again, it's changed so much over the years, how you attract volunteers. We don't have a social media, our competitor is hospice. Well, look at how they are able to do a lot of marketing and have people just designated for all of that. If you don't have the funds to do fancy stuff, because every nonprofit or so many agencies are in need of volunteers. And so now you're competing against other agencies. So it's so different than it used to be. But then we have to change it up. But I also know that the more we engage people to be volunteers, the more they're a part of the center. And oftentimes, as I told council at my presentation, 67% of, let's see, how was it? Something about where they volunteer is where they give money. They donate, they're committed. Like there's just this whole lovely circle of what happens when people feel connected to an agency, whether you're out there recruiting, whether you're volunteering yourself, but that's how you feel like you're part of a community.
Yes, about being a part of and believing in.
Correct, right. Not so much, what can they do for me? How about what can you do for your community, on a small scale or a big scale? So, but again, that takes a lot of volunteer time. And as we got busier, because if I'm sending Mandy or myself out to talk at all these engagements, well, then she's not in the office. So then if she wasn't there, I'm in the kitchen, or Dave's in the kitchen doing the nutrition program. So having Chris there is opening up these other opportunities to go back to what hopefully we can do more of. So
Before we leave the Chris situation, after the November 6th election, and the referendum passes, and I assume it's going to pass, how does that affect Chris's position then? Or do we have to wait till 2026?
Well, we have her through the end of this year.
Yeah.
And we will know on November 12th what happens with the budget and Chris's position. And hopefully there'll be some discussion before that, so I won't be surprised, or whatever, but discussions are being had. We went, Jerry and Marcia went to the public hearing. Paul wrote a letter to the mayor advocating for this position. So now it's just working within council, the council president, and just continuing.
With
The
referendum.
referendum
passed,
won't impact this at all. I mean, it certainly, yeah,
After the 12th, that's when all the
That's when
budget
we-
modifications are
right.
put in.
right.
And those budget modifications, did you say we're not advocating that full-time position until?
That was not
25?
included in the budget,
Until 26. But-
correct.
But can't you make a modification then?
Right, that's
after?
what's happening now. So the budget amendments from council are due on the 12th. So if this were gonna happen, maybe that budget amendment's gonna come through then and we'll know. So there's still some discussion on this position. But, you know, the referendum, there's two different budgets. If it passes, there's a budget that includes the proposed positions in there, which was not that LTE position. And if it doesn't pass, then there's the other budget that just is pretty much status quo.
Okay.
So
Right.
regardless, we're looking for this to become a permanent part-time, or are we ever going to try and get it to be a full-time?
Well, at this point,
Is it still part-time?
and it's also a limited term, because that's so less expensive, because there's no benefits, and there's no paid vacation, there's no anything. So we propose that, you know, in this climate, we will see. It's hard. My goal, that was my third time putting it in as a permanent position. And I will always ask for a permanent position,
Okay.
so, yeah. That help?
Okay.
All right.
Anything else for Jill? Okay, our next meeting is November 8th.
Did I put it on there? Okay, November 8th it is.
November 8th.
All
2
right,
days after the election.
okay.
Okay. Meeting adjourned. We don't have to.
Yeah, we don't, no adjournment necessary, yeah.
Um,
Thank you, Paul.
Are we off the air now?
Enjoy your day.